Hello, people of YouTube, rockers, groupies, and everything in between. Today on Jack the Punk Show, we are going to talk about blues and all that it's done for music today. Now, blues has done everything from help create country to giving us the glorious amount of hard core metal that we have. From the soft satin tones of just a simple 3-chord to the insane shredding of scales all along the fretboard, giving you that nice, delicious tone that we all crave. Now anyway, the first blues artist that I'd like to talk about today is one that is also known as Tiger Fingers, Stevie Ray Vaughan. As a kid, I always used to call him the Texan Cowboy for some reason. Oh no, the Mexican Cowboy, because he originally started off playing on a Mexican Fender Strat. He stuck with the Stratocaster, and they call him Tiger Fingers because he basically uses cables on his fretboard. He has acoustic guitar strings on his fretboard for his electric guitar, which is actually a very interesting, and it has a very big impact on the tone and the intonation. I think it also has a little bit on the tuning, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Now, personally, as a guitarist, I started off on blues, and he was the guitarist that I looked up to, the one that I spent most of my time trying to mimic, act like, and play. Eventually that evolved, but for basically a lot of guitarists out there, especially ones who start on scaling, they start on blues, because blues is kind of like beginner metal. If you really think about that. If you were to take every metal song, slow it down, take away half the distortion, and change the tone, you got blues. Also change some of the voice, not all the lyrics though. Now, Mr. Tiger Fingers had a very interesting way of playing his music. Not only was he an exceptional guitarist and singer, but he was a great performer, from playing the guitar with his teeth to just putting it behind his back and playing it without looking. Simple little tricks that were just little bits of fun. He had a very good way of implementing hammer-ons, amazing bends, especially for those acoustic strings. Those bends were just extreme. Like, if you've tried bending a string on an acoustic guitar, you know how much harder it is than if you have it on an electric guitar, because the strings are thicker, and the neck is thicker too, and the action is a little higher depending on the kind of acoustic you have and how you have it set up. Now, if you just take those factors of the thick string and put it on your electric guitar, it does change the intonation. It does, well, you can tweak all this stuff. It does change the tone, and it creates if you can do it right, such like he did, creates very, very good sound that is very fun to play. I have not yet done that to my electric strings, but I have done the reverse of that, where I put electric guitar strings on my acoustic, and that's actually a very good way to do what I like to call, well, it's, if you don't have an amp, it's dry picking, where you just play without an amp, but if you have an acoustic, you don't really need an amp, even if it's an acoustic electric. It's a very good way to practice your scaling, to try to get your speed up. Also try to get your, when you play guitar, you hear it and you play it. Now, guitarists, after spending time practicing, this happens in between about 3 to 5 years, unless you're like a guitar genius, or if you just have a natural niche for it. You start to connect the sounds that you hear with the sounds that you feel. Now, you can start doing this when you automatically start playing, but you become more effective at it when you've played it for about 3 years, because you start to get a very good feel and overall knowledge of where the notes are on the fretboard. That's why most guitarists don't look at the fretboard when they're playing guitar, because they have a good idea where the note that they're looking for is. And that's how you can start to get a good understanding where that is. Now, that's how you practice it with thinner strings, and you can move up. But some people just like to hit a wall by smacking on some heavy-duty strings and just going for it, which I have done that on my Les Paul. I went from 9s to 11s, which isn't a huge step, but it's still a pretty big step. And your hands they're not so sore, they're more or less tired, because you're going from a very, very thin gauge to a heavier gauge that will exercise your hands more. The bends require more effort. I actually just replaced strings on my Les Paul today. I went back to a 9 a while ago, and I just went up to a 10. So, and I've been playing it like crazy all day. My hands they're a little tired. The tips are more sore, but it's because I went on a little bit of a break for about a week, and I'm getting back into it, and it feels really good. It's like playing an old friend, or spending time with an old friend. That sounded wrong. Anyhow, another blues artist that we're going to talk about is Slowhand, also known as Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton, much like the other artists that we talked about earlier, uses a Fender Stratocaster. That seems to be a very synonymous with the blues. Well, Eric Clapton is known as Slowhand for a reason. He can play very well, but he doesn't play as fast as others. It's not because he doesn't want to, more or less. It's because that's just what that's what he enjoys playing. Now, Eric Clapton has been in groups such as, well, the main one that you all know, Cream. Cream has some very good songs, from White Room to Sunshine of Your Love. And Eric Clapton has done some amazing work over the years. He is still performing today. In fact, he's actually one of my favorite blues artists. One of my personal favorites it's an acoustic song. It's called Tears in Heaven. Very sad song, but very, very good song. He has been touring for years. He's played with many different artists, from B.B. King to I'm gonna get a couple hates for this, but Stevie Ray Vaughan's big brother, I can't remember his name right now, is also a guitarist. He's actually who Stevie learned from. To Albert King and Buddy Guy. Eric Clapton has a very thicker tone than Stevie Ray Vaughan had the twang for his blues, but Eric Clapton has, I'm going to use a horrible descriptive word, and it's kind of a pun, a very creamy tone. See what I did there? No. But good old Slowhand had a very, and still a very good sound that is still relevant today, that I still come back listening to. Cocaine, Sunshine of Your Love, Tears in Heaven. There's more, I just can't think about them right now. I have when I got my car about 2 years back, or about a year back, it came with a cassette tape player, so I went out and bought a couple cassettes. I bought a couple Led Zeppelins, Pearl Jam, and a Eric Clapton CD. It's called Slow Hand. It's the one with cocaine originally on it. Now we'll look at our next guy. Buddy Guy. Oh, I call him Polka Dot Strat Man because his strat is black with white polka dots. He seems to enjoy wearing overalls during his performance, but I won't judge. He has a very interesting way of, when he bends his string, he uses compression, which is an effect that will increase the sustain that your string leaves off to a much higher amount of time, and it's a very good effect. It's very good for blues soloists because if you're blues, you want to do something that Jeff Beck does. He likes to breathe when he plays, and that's not just do 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 do. That's he'll play a few notes, pause, take a breath, and then play more. It's a very interesting concept, but that's how compression can help. If you can leave that note up, it gives it the chance for the crowd to kind of surround themselves and immerse themselves with the music that they're hearing, instead of not just speeding through it. I'm not saying that's not a bad thing, that's a very good thing, but when you're playing blues, you want to tap into the feeling that everyone is having. They're having a shitty day, so you want to tap into that to help them feel better. So you're going to take the sweet sound of blues and the nice warm bass around it and just increase it and let it vibrate out and make a nice fade echo, and it's deliciously sounding. Now we'll talk about how blues has helped music today. Like I had mentioned earlier in the beginning of this video, blues has helped create country, camera fail, punk, and metal, along with every subgenre, and that goes along with that. How blues is entered in with country is because country is like the southern blues. I kind of want to say that, but what most country artists talk about in their music is sad things. Not that there are good country songs. I know, oh my gosh, I just said there are good country songs. It's a crime against music. No, it's not. It's okay to like country. I myself am not a big fan of it, but I enjoy some country songs. And country songs actually have a very wide range of kinds of music, kind of lyrics that they use, but it does focus more on the sadder side. Side note, this is why I hate country, or why I dislike country. They wrote a song about a red cup and got money for it. Let that sink into your head. And biased moment over. Okay. Anyway, country music and blues have been intertwined because all you need to do when you take blues to make it into country is you play that 3-1-5 chord, and you just take your pickups, put it on the tremolo pickup, give it the twang. That's what the Telecaster was used mostly for, was country. I'm not saying that it has not made its progression into rock and metal. John 5, which is a metal guitarist for Rob Zombie, uses a Telecaster, and it's pretty badass. But that's just one way how country or how blues is shaped. Now, how blues is shaped metal is because when you are playing the general scales on your blues, if you do add speed to it and you just crank the distortion up to 12, you crank the volume up to 12, and you crank the tone up to 12, and you just add reverb, it just is and you just move fast paced. You're just taking all the blues chords and all the blues scaling over top of it, and that's how you have gotten metal. Now, how blues has helped punk, it's kind of a mix between how it's done country and metal. When you're making punk music, what you're doing, you're taking about 3 to 4 chords and playing them over again. That's what country music is. That's what a lot of music is. It's just a few chords played over and over in progression. But the way that punk does it, or rock, or alternative rock, or grunge, is they will power chord it, and that's actually one of the simpler things that you learn in guitar, is how to do a power chord. Now, it will be a high-speed power chord, but it usually doesn't have such an intense solo as metal, and the distortion is cranked more to 2/3 of the way. And depending on what kind of amp you have, it'll be labeled as shape or tone. That'll be cranked not as far to give it more of a crunch feeling rather than a full-on distortion feeling. You'll have more of a dirt than you would of a mud. And that's kind of how blues has helped shape music today. Now, if you don't like blues, it's fine, but at least appreciate it for the contribution that it has done to music today. Blues is a very versatile style of music that has gone a long way from just being the acoustic sad sorrows of one sad man to help inspire brutal, angry music that a lot of modern day musicians use. Now, there is one song that I absolutely love. That's an old blues song that Nirvana redid. It's called "Where Did You Sleep Tonight?" But I like the Leadbelly version just as much as I like the Nirvana version. I like the Leadbelly version because when you can take someone's voice and you can really hear it, the pain and everything they're putting in with that song, it's just a wonderful feeling. It kind of helps that I'm not alone in my sadness feeling. Now, how do I describe this? That's kind of how most blues is. If you want to really go back, I am not trying to be racist in any way. I am not racist. But a lot of blues music did come from African American slaves back in the 1800s, or 1700s, sorry, with around the Revolutionary War all the way up to the Civil War, and still in certain parts of the world today. Or if you were on a prison old chain gang, you would hear people sing in blues. That's why if you listen to a lot of artists today who do blues, they will actually add in chain sounds. The Ballad of John Henry by Joe Bonamassa, who is a very good blues artist. He's actually considered the best blues guitarist out of his generation, which is a very, very big step. He's about 35 now. He when he was 12, he played with Eric Clapton and B.B. King. So, kind of a big honor. So he's one of the guys that I've been listening to a lot recently, and I have found that song about John Henry. He will actually implement country into his blues, which there's country blues, but he has a blues rock feel to him, and when he adds in that country, it fits in a very odd way that is kind of a bittersweet taste in your mouth. And when you hear the Ballad of John Henry, you will hear the chains in the background, you will hear his voice, and you will hear the guitar switch from just the regular progression of a blues guitar to when he adds the implement of a slide for the solo, which is a very useful tool that I'm still working on with. It's a not complicated, but it is a little tricky if you're new to it, like I am. It's very enjoyable though. People in the rock world have used it. People in the classic rock have. But he uses it in a way that when you hear this song, it takes you back, because it talks about John Henry the slave, who would make railroad tracks. And if you know the story of John Henry, some guy had made this invention that would lay railroad tracks faster than any man. He took up that challenge and beat the train, but spoiler alert, he died at the end. So the song is about how slaves had started to rebel. One of the lines is, take this hammer, carry it to the captain, tell him why I'm gone. He's basically saying, I'm gone. John Henry has died because of this. I'm not going to end up like him. Now, it has a very deep meaning, kind of saying you need to move on in life, but it also has that feel of we need to respect where we came from. And I thoroughly enjoy that. I enjoy most of his work, but that's Ways Blues and Shaved Music. I'd like to thank you all for watching my video. Comment to give me more topics to talk about. I'm not running out of ideas, but it's always nice to get a little more information on what you would want to hear. I'm working on some music today. I've been working with a couple interesting chords. I got a nice lick I'm going to try and put up tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. Leave me a like and subscribe to get more of this music stuff that you want to hear. Also, if you want me to talk about modern day culture, I might be doing that next week, maybe not. We'll see. If we do, I will try to be as unbiased as possible, as I do in every video. Have a good night, and enjoy yourselves. Bye-bye!